Sounds fantastic. Yeah, let's just get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to ChirpCast. Obviously, you know me. My name's Corey. This is Michael from EOSUSA. Let's just say that in the EOSIO community, he gets around. That's way less colorful than what we were just talking about, but you get the picture. So basically, you just said that you guys basically do everything. I was talking to Max Indelt from Crown, who suggested I need to talk to you. Every conversation I've had about crypto, in all the team meetings from like 3 different projects over the last 2 days have all been about networks talking to each other, trying to get stuff off Ethereum, trying to get tokens on Ethereum, wrap this, wrap that, everything, all this kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to talk to you, but maybe if you could give us an introduction to Michael from EOSUSA just to start, so we have a baseline.
Well, I'm CTO for EOSUSA, and I'm the face that most people know because I'm in the Telegram groups the most, but there's several others that help me do what I do. But long story short, I'm kind of the main man that runs all the DPoS nodes and anything that kind of has to do with the servers and the network and the block producers and the history nodes and the IBC nodes and all of that really kind of falls under my expertise. So,
all right. So, because we have some noobs that watch us every once in a while, DPoS is delegated proof of stake. Yes,
it is. And just give
That's
you a little
how
bit
EOS runs or whatever.
Yeah. So a little bit of background on EOSUSA. Actually,
sure.
We have a larger blockchain company. So EOSUSA is kind of one of our subsidiaries that does the proof of stake, the token holders voting or staking, doing whatever, versus what's called proof of work, which is the Bitcoin mining, the, like Ethereum mining, the power hungry little toasters, as we call it. We do both. So actually, I've got one room that's got 15 EOSUSA servers in it, sitting beside another line of 700 Bitcoin miners in this location and all over the place. So we actually do proof of work and proof of stake. We do blockchain. That's what we do. So I focus on the proof of stake side of things, which is mostly run off of normal servers and normal network versus, like an ASIC, as I call our little toasters that.
Right. The little miner. What was the company that was making those things?
Bitmain is the one, the main one. We're actually, our company is a reseller for WhatsMiner, which is one of the other big competitors in the mining industry. But anyway, same basic concept. Some nerd took a bunch of chips and figured out if I stack them this way and program them this way, it does this mathematical calculation.
Right, fan at one end, Bitcoin algorithm in the middle, and power the entire way through.
Oh, it's crazy. I'll send you some pictures when we get off of here of some of our locations. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of these things, and megawatts and megawatts of power. Anyway, long story short, that's one of the other sides that we do. So most people don't know that about us, but the proof of stake side, and like I say, the EOS, and there's actually several other proof of stake chains, some that we have some involvements with, but proof of stake.
So, what's the most fascinating part of that to you right now as somebody who's like well into that space?
I guess, being on both sides, comparing proof of work, proof of stake is everybody kind of agrees, look, Bitcoin miners are using more power than Iceland. That may not be sustainable, or is that really required? So proof of stake allows you to do the security and the signing and the trusting of the network and the instantaneous transfers and whatnot, without having to use a small country's worth of power. So that's why I kind of like this side of it is, it's not as decentralized as pure the numbers and the math are all that you trust, but it's much more sustainable in the idea of blockchain and, distributed ledger and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. I always look at thinking of Bitcoin. I mean, I went to actually a huge Bitcoin mine in Iceland. They had thousands of the little S miners running. It was crazy, running right next to a geothermal plant. So they weren't just using that power, but it was a lot of it. So that was pretty cool. Whatever, it's fine. But they were a tiny slice. They had 7 warehouses like the one that I saw, and they were doing maybe a 0.5% to 1%, right? Yeah. And so if you look at the ability for Bitcoin to get forked ad nauseum with enough people in mining power, and the fact that between maybe 3 companies connected to China and Bitmain, they probably have well more than 50%. of the mining capacity running at any given point in time. Like, it's not decentralized. Bitcoin isn't. Now
Right.
they have to pretend that it is. Like Bitmain's never going to do anything about it.
The math is what we trust. That's okay. But when all the equations and answers are coming out of one place, that's
right. Like they could change the equation tomorrow. They won't, because they need that ethos. They need the mythology behind it. To be maintained.
From the Bitcoins, from the blockchain side of it, I'm not a decentralization maximalist,
right.
like even Wax or something that's semi-permissioned, okay, we've got public blockchain or public block producers, but we still control kind of, the path of the chain, that's what's really worked well for them is you're not fighting, herding cats. You can really focus and have a central vision, but you can still say, look, anybody can invest in our token and know that, we shouldn't be able to just take it and go willy nilly with it. Not to say that, somebody couldn't with code, but.
Right. Yeah. But I think that as long as we're just sort of getting into the space now where like, I feel like Bitcoin and the math behind it proved that, okay, we as humans can make this math thing on the internet thing. And then that can be the trust layer, right? So that just kind of takes that to I don't think it was really considered at scale anyway to be this thing that we could do, right? So then we have money that like who owns it? Nobody. Kind of maybe Bitmain, but like whatever. Shut up. Like we don't know to think about it. But now we've got 100 different versions of that, whether it's Wax Chain or EOSIO, where the crazy monkeys on planet Earth are looking around and going, okay, well, what are the limits and trade-offs that we can do where maybe the total trustlessness might get eroded a little bit, but we can do 100 million times more things or whatever, right? Like it really feels like there's been a diaspora and now there's experiment upon experiment going on, which to me seems really good, right? Like some of them, we might find the upward limit to any one angle of it, but it's going to end up being faster and better.
Like on Wax, they've developed their Wax Cloud wallet, which basically through like a Google login and even with pay and all of that, you have a fully functional EOSIO wallet. Now, it's somewhat custodial and, it's on Wax, a semi-permissioned chain, but to the end user, most people really don't care.
That's exactly right.
Ease of use. You know what they don't get? Well, I got to load scatter and it's not connected to the right node. And, a lot of these hassles that blockchain, not anything unique to our space, all of them, MetaMask or any of the chains, but the user experience is that's I think a big thing that a lot of people are realizing. Look, people don't care if it's decentralized, people care if it works.
Right. Well, and again, like if it can get gamed at scale, then it's not decentralized enough, and that's going to be a problem, right? There, you can imagine the scenario where the end user's like, "What the frick? My NFT is not my NFT anymore." Obviously, that's a problem, right?
Right.
But it really, it's almost like the technology is at the point now where just embed it, make it disappear, make the UX, the user experience, really, really good, and then we get all the benefit as the end user, which I definitely am. Like I don't know fucking anything. Right, but like
for the sake of the argument, I run a bunch of servers, but there's so much.
Like I love teaching people about. I was just walking my friend through this one of the old Shipple meme, masters, and we were using the Lynx wallet because it was freaking easy, right? Like that when that came out, like I just told everyone to use that because it literally did everything, and you didn't really need to know anything.
See, I'm huge on, Lynx obviously became Proton, and we're actually on the Proton steering committee. So we're big on Proton. And the whole point of that is they're UX centric. That was their big thing all along was, what I call the Apple interface is one button. Don't make it, I'm a droid man, so obviously I'm a techie, but that's why I explain to people, if you're not a techie person, Apple tends to be a little more user immersive, one button, easy clicks. And that's by far what we need for adoption. The nerds don't need help. It's the average user that wants to be able to play a game and buy an NFT and understand what that is.
That's exactly it. Like the 100 or 1000x of this current marketplace absolutely categorically lies in just showing the value of it and not having to get people to understand scatter. Like I had her using Wombat, but then Wombat doesn't work on iPhone. We're like, oh fuck, shitballs. And then we mess around with the Chrome thing, and that kind of sort of doesn't work. And she's trying to import a thing, and Lynx was literally like she was running 6 different accounts on Lynx and just dug that, loved it completely. Now
I still use my Lynx wallet from time to time.
Dude.
Slowly, it's starting to cripple its way out of support.
Right?
You know,
Exactly.
I have a personal wallet, but
yeah,
like I say, I love it, and it was it's easy and it works. You know,
right? Yeah. So is Proton thinking about basically duplicating that effort, or are they focusing more on their own chain? Because if they did, we would use it.
I mean, that's still the same concept. It's still the same crew. Lynx, that whole crew merged with Metal
right. Yeah.
And icing on the cake, assimilated Blocks.io.
Yeah.
So
man,
they got a pretty solid crew, you know, and that's the mentality is that, you know, you don't need to know it's blockchain. You just need to get the benefits from it. But UX and payment rails and stuff like that, you know, I mean, yes, that's still their mentality. They just kind of shifted away from the Lynx chain, get an airdrop over on Proton, and are kind of merging.
Yeah, no, I managed to lock some up when they were doing that, because I know, like, worst case scenario, they're going to build something fantastic.
Right? Well, they're building something all the time. Just so you know, one of the things they were building is what took out my node at 2 a.m. this morning. It was a Proton node they took out. I saw a polite request to Syed. Can you stop that real quick? So we're working on something.
Whatever you're doing killed my shit.
Correct. Well, and it was mostly mine. And, you know, like I say, I mean, we'll get into the, you know, I'll mention the unlimited hardware, but when I say unlimited hardware, it ain't i9. So, you know, some of the services may run on not the fastest, most powerful. Well, you put it on tilt. You know, the block producer stayed fine and all the major stuff. But yeah, no, some of the back end potatoes definitely weren't ready for that punch in the bowls. But anyway.
That's awesome. So talk to me about how all of the networks are starting to talk to each other. So this is the thing that I've been thinking about a lot, like the IBC, you know, inter blockchain connectivity, presumably. Is that what we would call that?
Yeah, IBC is kind of the general term. It's kind of loosely associated, but yeah, I mean, transferring one token between, or one asset, we'll call it, between one blockchain and another, be it both the EOSIO or be it ETH and EOSIO.
Right.
And there's several different mechanisms for doing that, you know?
Yeah. So, the ability, we were talking about some doing like this triple, the community token that I started a couple of years ago. We're just like doing like a kind of a relaunch thing or whatever. And Max was like, man, you should try and, you know, put some on the Wax blockchain. I'm like, okay. So he showed me that the whole bridge thing, and I'm like, man, like this is fascinating. This is just the thing that we can do now. And then Kurt suddenly has been talking about, I think maybe I'll launch some stuff on Ethereum. And then I told him, like, can we do a bridge, right? Because it would be amazing to because I'm, you know, connecting all these token projects and getting them activated on Chirp, right? So this is a ChirpCast, basically the Chirp social platform that we started up. We got just about 10 tokens now where they've got their own channels, and anybody who posts in that channel gets a little bit of their token as a reward, like basically changing some of your token into social engagement or whatever. It's freaking fancy. But imagine
just added Telos not too long ago.
Yeah. It was Telos. We added like 10 or 11 days ago, and we're at 10 now. So we're like Boyd, Atmos, Pummel, Dust, and Chipple, and a few others. And we're hopefully adding PGL really soon from Prospector. And I'm talking to a few people from Vigor to add them. And obviously when
fun fact, I'm a Vigor custodian too.
Nailed it. Yeah, right. Vigor is fascinating to me. I'm a huge
Vigor hurts my head. Look, I do all
me too.
Like, I feed the price oracles, I run all of the, you know, whatever's, but no, look, I mean, I leave the DeFi. Even at EOSUSA and, you know, in our, the bigger blockchain, we have a CFO guy that, look, you do all the finance, you sell the coins, I'll do what I need to do off of it, but I don't get any of this finance BS. So I say, you know, when they're looking at the charts, I say, y'all, it's like looking at the clouds. Y'all all look at this cloud and say, it looks like a doggy, and you all sell because of that doggy. And the only reason it works is because you all see the same dog. And those of us that don't see that dog get wrecked.
That is far more true than it isn't.
That's what I'm like.
As somebody who you know has made money reading charts, you read charts long enough, you're like, this works basically because everyone thinks it's going to work, right?
Right. It's like, well, why is that? Well, because the charts say it. And I'm like, well, why do the charts say that? Well, that's what they've always said. Well,
there is something to be said for large movers in the space that have to sell, like miners, or that have to buy, like big, whatever the secondary market is, right? You're basically really looking to spot where they are forced to buy and where they're forced to sell, and those create the sort of macro levels. But yeah, like anything less than a macro level, like if you're trading down smaller, like you're basically that's a fractal image of a dog in the clouds. Like you're totally right, like that, and it just works because everyone's like, maybe this will work, and then everyone buys and nobody sells, and then it does exactly what they thought it was going to do.
Well, and it's like it's tied to the market as much as we want to disassociate ourselves from the global economic market. Is that when people are spending money everywhere, right? I mean, when people aren't, they aren't. So
yeah,
hey, the market's crashing. Doesn't matter what the hell the Bitcoin market said,
well, and there's so many more ties now to traditional markets that, I always thought, especially, like all the memes going around where like 20% of all dollars have been created in the last year, some ridiculous thing. Like that's bananas, right? You would imagine that there would have to be some repercussions to that, but face facts, we haven't seen it yet. That doesn't mean it isn't coming. You're just like right now, everyone's like, "Yay, there's more money!" Yippity doo dah. But there's so many financial institutions now that are getting tied into Bitcoin that I always thought there would be a reverse correlation or an inverse correlation, but maybe there just won't be.
Well, I mean, you're always going to have anybody with big money is that they're speculators. The speculators are going to be wherever the money can be made. That's what I always tell people is that you want to know what the stock market would be if it didn't have regulations and circuit breakers and all of that. Oh my God, 5% failure and it drops and circuit breaks. Shit, a Bitcoin will drop 20%. And everybody be like, all right, now we should really start playing. I mean, where's these numbers about to go, right? I mean, it's like 20% value sheared in 30 minutes is a normal day.
Regularly. That's the thing. Like I keep telling people that like are starting to get back in and look at Bitcoin now. Like, oh, pumpkins, you don't even know. it hasn't even really breached all-time high yet. We could totally see a 30% drop from here, and that would be awesome. That's more time for tech.
Expect
right,
if you haven't broken that all-time high, there's some whale out there that's sitting there saying, all right, I'm going to scoop up the last, it's about to go, let me crush it down to the bottom, scoop up what I can, and then let it moon, right? I mean, go ahead and expect it because it's speculation market,
and also like the chart would look better if it retraced, you know what I mean? Like it as a guy who looks at the dogs in the clouds, it could, and again, like I keep looking at the historical analysis, it has just kind of gone up from here before, right? Without doing it.
I mean, of course, I struggle with any of that, historic. Well, it's 800% increase. Look, I can't just wrap my head around an asset continuously, 800%, 8,000
doing that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Eventually, you just exceed the mathematical dollars of the world, right? I mean,
that's the thing. The cool thing is we're nowhere close to that. And I honestly, I can't. This isn't exactly a popular opinion, but Bitcoin feels like DOS to me, right? Like it works.
Whenever you compare it to EOS, I mean, 12. Right? We joke about this. So like I'll be sending over, coins or whatever. So we got Bitcoin. Of course, we mine Bitcoin. It comes in, takes 12 minutes plus whatever. And of course, confirmation. So I mean, you set it, you go do whatever. You may go home for the day, come back, hey, it confirmed or whatever. I send wax per se. It hits the exchange in like 5 minutes, like confirmed, deposited on the exchange and processed in 5 minutes. And I'm just like, my coin's faster than yours.
Yeah, tons. Like it's not even comparable, right? And this is while Bitcoin's still relatively quiet compared to where it's going to be in 6 months. Where like at the peak last time, like I did a Bitcoin, and luckily I was moving like $3 or $4 grand or whatever it was, but the transaction fee was like $55, and it took like 5 days. Right?
I bought a boat with some Bitcoin, and I think I sent like $4 grand, and it was $12 or $10 or something like that in fees. I mean, just to do that with any other mechanism. And of course, it could have been 40,000 and it'd been about the same.
Yeah. You watch, the stuff that people are throwing around now, like that MicroStrategy stuff, but like taking out business loans to buy hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin.
Right. Now, somebody was saying really that it's not good for micro transactions. I mean, that's right. I always talked about being able to buy your coffee with Bitcoin. I don't think you're going to be able to do that. Yeah. And I mean, just in theory, can you imagine if you swiped your credit card, if it took 12 minutes for it to confirm? That's not, I mean,
it doesn't work.
It works as a backbone. So that's why I say, they call it digital gold. I call it, the kind of new banking system is that you're okay. I still don't understand why in 2020, we're all still okay with it taking 3 days to settle between two major banks. Bank of America and Wells Fargo, I can transfer money and they will hold it for like a week to 10 days.
Yeah.
I'm like, 2020, guys. So I mean, 12 minutes in respect to that. It's
totally true. Yep.
So, and then you get the, as you get into your application, EOS IO based, half a second transaction times or block times, and then confirmation finality within 3 minutes, give or take. Although BOS and the BOS IBC solution, which I know you had mentioned, one of the reasons it uses BOS is they have that 3 second lib, 3 seconds, irreversible. So on EOS or WAX or any of those others, but by default, you have to wait up to 3 minutes, give or take 2.5 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes for all the BPs to have gone around, and maybe about 2 minutes, but all the BPs to go around and say, yes, everything that the previous BPs did is signed on the blockchain and called irreversible. I don't know.
Done, right. Anyone who that's the reason why they call it a blockchain. The block is basically taken.
That is when it is officially no longer
written in,
worked out of it. I mean, while it's still going through the mesh and irreversible, but anyway, so that churn, even 3 minutes is a while for a legitimate confirmation to know that your transaction wouldn't be forked out. Some chains, several chains actually, but BOS for one. Did the 3 second lib. So it's not 3 minutes, it's 3 seconds. So within 3 seconds on their blockchain, the transaction is non-forkable and valid, which works out very well for the IBC mesh. When you're bouncing it through the BOS chain, you have to wait 3 minutes for the first chain to irreversibly send it. Well, if you had to wait for a middle thing for another 3 minutes and then the destination chain for another 3 minutes, I mean, 9 minutes total. You took out a third of it by saying, look, I can't change how long WAX takes and how long EOS takes, but this 3 second hop in the middle obviously cuts it down, but gives you an idea of kind of,
right.
And of course, all of that's still better than 12 minutes from Bitcoin.
Right. Exactly. So with could you tell us about the BOS IBC bridge? Like where did that start? How's it going? Who could play? Why would we do that?
Yeah. So where it started, I don't know officially, what roundtable discussion it started from, but BOS was always big on kind of bleeding edge and trying to push the edge and customize EOSIO. So like I said, very early on, they made that push for the 3 second lib, which gave them, a much faster churn on their data. So anyway, I'll say, BOS kind of had a lot of these visions for next level improvements outside of like what V1 was doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, out from that, they realized, A, need it fast for finality, and B, we need a way to bridge all of these chains together. We were all kind of sold that EOSIO kind of would function together. Dan's famous comment is, would you want one chain with 1,000 nodes or 1,000 chains with one nodes? One's 1,000 more times powerful than the other,
Right.
So anyway, long story short, they realized, that was one of the gaps that they were trying to fill. So they basically built a structure of contracts and nodes that you run to process those contracts that basically live on each of the spoke chains. BOS is kind of the hub in the middle. It doesn't have to be, but it is fundamentally, just understand. But the code's actually ambiguous. It doesn't have to always be the BOS chain. But so the BOS chain is kind of the hub. And basically, you've got all these EOSIO chains and potentially non-EOSIO chains. I think they talked about Polkadot and ETH and stuff like that.
Right.
But basically, they all just kind of have spokes and have the ability to talk back to the BOS chain and then travel down one of the other spokes. So, for instance, you're on WAX, you've got your token, you want to send it over to EOS. You send a transfer command to the IBC contract. So for a user, like Alcor's developed a nice clean interface for IBC transferring, but it's basically just a command that you're sending to a contract. And you send this token or asset or whatever to the contract. It then gets relayed to the BOS chain and then says, well, where am I supposed to go from here? Oh, you're supposed to go to EOS. Well, then the nodes relay it over to EOS. And you basically get this asset on EOS that you originally had on WAX. Right. And the nodes and the contracts handle that back and forth for you. Does that make sense from a 30,000 foot?
It does, even to a total noob. And that really pertains to a conversation, thinking about linking it over to links. Because we were thinking like it'd just be really cool to have like a bit of the circulating supply of Shipple on Wax or whatever. Because we're all dealing with NFTs over there, and that the Shipple memes thing is going to be all on Atomica, that kind of thing on Wax. So that's really, really fun. But every conversation I've had over the last 2 days is like, the Beeple drop on Nifty Gateway racks in $3.5 million in like 2 days. It's completely, totally stupid. It's like crazy, right?
Yeah.
And we all know, as people connected to the EOSIO community, that Ethereum is going to grind to a halt in 6 months, right? Like it's going to turn into like trying to walk through molasses. It's going to be ridiculous. And so, I was in a meeting with the Uplift people. Were like, how do we, obviously get all that liquidity into our Atomic Hub marketplace, right? Like it's like a giant ocean of liquidity compared to, really strong, but really, kind of small dedicated community on Wax right now. Right? So trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we make it really, really easy for them to spend ETH and get, Nifties on the Wax chain? And, part of it's like, they might want to, there's obviously a lot of Ethereum maximalists. They might want to have those Nifties, show up in their Nifty Gateway thing on Ethereum or what have you. But in that process, hopefully we would be educating them. Like, you could do that if you really want to stick your NFT in like a bunch of molasses. But it'd be a lot smarter if you brought all of your Ethereum NFTs over to Wax, where you can have them sent around and thrown around like crazy, and it takes less than it looks to you like it takes 5 seconds.
Well, I mean, what I'm kind of hoping for is that idea that everybody was kind of sold on is owning your own assets and being able to play games and do things whatever. But I don't think anybody really envisioned that every time you press that button, it was going to cost you $2 or $3, right? So that's where I think I'm hopeful that same mentality and even some of the same money and rails can flow over, and them understand, hey, I mean, this asset is minted, and this, that, and the other. I didn't have to pay for it. I can transfer it. I can sell it. I can do whatever, pay the commissions to the sellers, but you're not paying transaction fees per se.
Right.
Still don't think you have any sort of interaction, just focusing on Wax and that. The Wax Cloud wallet, and being able to, I was showing some of my guys, here's how you log in and open some packs or see our collections or anything like that. And it's click on Google, and then Google takes it from there, right? I mean, I got my 2-factor auth, I got all of that. And they were just like, this is the blockchain wallet experience now? Like, yes. Now, is it the most secure? Not if you compare it to the Fort Knox of secure, but do you really, how secure is your PlayStation? Because you'll put thousands of dollars into your,
right,
Call of Duty and all of that, and some shit gets hacked all the time, right? I mean,
So this is where, like I've got some NFTs that have gone up in perceived value or whatever. So I can imagine. So I've just been using the cloud wallet. I can imagine making I want like a security savings wallet, right, where I own.
Well, and that's what I mean. I know
and you could do right if you got 20 grand or 30 grand sitting somewhere. You're like, well, I'll just go fucking figure that out. But for the vast majority of users, they just want. I just want to be able to get them in there, give them a pack, see, a music video NFT come up, and then they can like put it on sale. I've had a couple friends that I've like kind of taken the time to walk them through this, even though they're like, they freaking think crypto is completely lunacy or whatever, right? And
my wife's so convinced that the FBI is going to come kick in our door someday because
right. But so my buddy Greg comes on there, and I send him some NFTs, and I'm like, you own those? I'm like, wait a minute, like you can't just duplicate these? No. And then he puts one on for sale or whatever, and then like just behind the scenes I go over and like buy it. He's like, holy shit, somebody bought one of my NFTs. This is the most amazing thing ever. I'm like, yeah, you're busted.
That's what I remember.
He's still a bunch since then. He's having a blast.
I think it was EOS Nights that I was playing, way back in the day, and that, I blew my guy's mind, and I don't know, I made like a nickel or something off of that, but it was a general concept that I played a game, I ground it out, I got a sword or something like that, and I sold it, and somebody paid EOS for it, and I made money off of playing a game, owning an asset, and then selling said asset to somebody else who wanted it. They really, that's what they had always been striving for and understood, in general. But to see it, and I mean, EOS Nights by no means was, it's not Oculus Rift.
It's conceptual. I was talking to Bonds, who was connected to the Prospectors, the PGL game or whatever. Yeah, it was a great conversation. We were supposed to be talking about Vigor, didn't happen. I hadn't really dug into the whole Prospector thing yet. And again, that's not VR, right? It's not Skyrim, but they've created a really, really intense economy
Correct.
where, you do want to go in probably and go in and spend a little bit of money on, getting a pickaxe or, getting
the one
whatever,
that
right?
I'm in on right now is the Alien Worlds.
I feel like that everyone's headed in that direction. I'm going to need to get somebody. Do you know anyone from Alien Worlds? Because I'm going to have to get schooled on this shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, Anders from Sweden is probably the foremost expert I know of. I mean, he's been doing a lot of interviews and staying on. I talk to him all the time, but yeah, I mean, I know the DAC crew and work with them. So, like I say, there's a little bit of personal. It's cool whenever you know some of the folks, but
right, yeah, I'd love to chat with Anders again.
I love the concept of I mean, a really complex. I don't know, economy, I guess you'd call it. I mean,
yeah. Well, and like they're doing land with Alien Worlds too, right?
They are. It's almost like two games. I was describing one of the guys. It's almost like two games. You got the mining, so you own the land. You get tools. You can mine. You get some trillium off of it. You upgrade your tools. You do whatever. But there's also within the same game the fighting aspect. I think what they call Thunderdome or whatever. But it's basically you get these cards which have strength and speed and tools that they can use to fight stronger, and then you can battle. So. And oh yeah, by the way, to upgrade those, you got to spend the trillium that you either buy or make off of, the market or the land. So anyway, I mean, it's kind of, they all play together. But I'm excited. I mean, I'm a game grinder anyway, so
right.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, it's there's just so many things. There's so many things.
So the big thing on that, one of the reasons I bring it up is they've been big on breaching over to the ETH side of things.
Yeah.
And I know Yates wrote a bridge. Now his is just a proprietary bridge between Wax and ETH. And really, I think explicit, it'll pay, like you could pay for packs and stuff in Wax. So I mean, they process stuff like that, but mainly I think it's the Trillium aspect. So like an IBC for their in-game token. Okay. So now the in-game token will exist in the ETH financial plethora. Versus to exist only on a small EOSIO exchange.
Right. Well, and that's kind of why. Because I was talking to Kurt about this morning, right? You're talking about, it's one thing to kind of mint a token. We were talking about Dust, which is his the Nifty Wizards in-game currency, and he's going to mint Dust on ETH and create a bridge for that. I was like, man, if you're going to make a token, like the P token thing isn't doing one, it's doing all of them, right? Like it's interesting if you do that for Dust, that's great. But if you could do it and it's not, that much more of a challenge, just set up a bridge so that we can do it with Dust and Shipple and Pummel and all these other ones. Because if we can, go over there, it's slower, right? I wouldn't necessarily want to send NFTs there unless, like you said, like if people want to have, if they're used to their, nifty gates or whatever, like if they're used to that ETH-based experience, fine. But getting into the liquidity of a Uniswap with EOS-based tokens that are wrapped on Ethereum just feels like something that is not a crazy idea.
Well, and from the technical aspect, and not to go all too nerdy on you, but think of it as two different levels. One is and I keep saying asset because it covers both of them. But
right.
Think of a token. A token's pretty easy. They're not really serialized. You got one over here. It really needs to either be burned and wrapped over here, or whatever, or issued over here, or held and wrapped, whatever mechanism you want to do for that. But tokens are pretty easy to move back and forth. There's very little standard between them. I got one here, I got one there. Yeah. NFTs are a whole nother level of, especially like atomic assets. I heard you mention that. They're really template driven, which makes it really easy to do NFTs, but it makes it really hard to ultimately integrate that to an ETH NFT standards. Does that make sense? Because they're just different.
Okay.
I mean,
right.
So a token's a token, but an NFT isn't always an NFT. They have different attributes. They have different. Does that make sense? So
I think so. Yeah.
Between like ETH and EOSIO based chains. Now, like atomic assets, they've enabled on EOS. They've enabled on Wax. So obviously, it's very easy to transfer those assets between those two. They have the same. They follow the same logic, but. Just from the IBC, you call it node operator side of it, even when you talk about bridging, we'll add in this chain and this chain and this chain and this chain and this chain.
Right.
There's complexities and nuances about every single one of those. How are their transfers? It's not just Cleos transfer account and account. You know, I mean, do that on
exactly
on ETH. You know, I mean, obviously it's a little different. And Bitcoin, you know, I mean, it's all the same concept, but technically, it's night and day. And you've got this rail and this rail and this rail. And like I say, well, some of the chains are focusing on that. Proton, you know, and it really, I don't know. And when I think of it in my head, I think of Link's crew as the UX and, you know, make it easy, make it simple, make it pretty. And the middle as, you know, get into the real financial world. And, you know, Marshall meets with Congress and the congressmen and stuff all the time. So, you know, those are like, all right, those are almost the two strongest things I think you need. You know, I mean,
well, and then
together and payment rails and even fiat, you know, much less than Bitcoin and all of that. And then slap, you know,
blocks on top of that. Yeah. Well, and that being able to I am really bullish on that team as well, just because, I mean, it's when it comes down to, attacking the FinCEN things. Like it's like I think because we've been, I've been releasing some NFTs with Uplift and stuff, and that's been super fascinating. So thinking about things in terms of NFTs, but like it's one thing to have like I don't know, maybe it's a $500 million market of NFTs and maybe $1 billion worth of liquidity that might flow out of Ethereum at some point or whatever, which is like what 1% of how much is actually locked in it right now, which is a lot to think about. But the amount of fiat that's going to go into crypto is like a giant mountain on top of a mountain on top of a mountain worth of freaking liquidity. And so they're going, the people that are focused in that intersection between, okay, how can we turn US dollars into something that isn't stupid? Right.
Well, no wonder. I mean, we're going to see another mini version of, was it 17? 17 was the run, 18 was the crash. I don't know. It all blurs together.
No, I think 17 was most of the run, like a little bit of 18.
Not the run of blind run. Oh, you got a white paper. Here's $1 billion or whatever. But you know, okay, it's almost like they've accepted Bitcoin. They understand crypto is, you know, kind of here to say, hey, these nerds got something going on or whatever. And then,
they don't know about anything else yet. Yeah.
Well, what's the next one? You know, I hear about this ETH, and that's where I kind of think you're here now. Is that you're starting to see some? Oh, well. ETH isn't $20,000 a coin. Maybe I can get in earlier here. I mean, you know, I don't know if they're sold on the idea of it, but most speculators aren't. Anyway, I'm hopeful that we're going to see another run, but with maybe a little straighter head on our shoulders, but more institutional investors looking for additional chains or projects.
I mean, we're seeing that already, right? There's what 1,000 times probably more institutional money coming in and like being on CNBC, like the it's
every
out
time
there,
now, right? I get all the text messages. It's like, I just saw your Bitcoin on. And I'm like, good, because if you saw it, that means it's going up.
Right, exactly. More people buying, and there's only so much, so the price has only one direction.
I got hit up. It was like, hey, how do I get this? All right, let's get you a Coinbase account, and and here's how to do it. And let me tell you, watch your ass.
Yeah, seriously. And so many people ask, like, oh, should I buy? Like, they just bought Bitcoin last week. Should I sell it and then buy it back later? I'm like, fucking just sell it and walk away forever. Like, if you want to hold it for 8 years, do that. Like, 2 Bitcoin cycles will make you money for sure.
I logged into Coinbase and I was just saddened and disheartened, not in a bad way, but it was like, oh, you want to, DCA, distributed cost average, set up a recurring buy. And I was like, oh my God, can you imagine just every day buy $10 worth of BT?
Yeah. I mean, like if you did the math on that over any 5-year period where it's been any 4.5-year period, right? You know, you're going to make money. And that's why my favorite thing to send people is the meme with the annual lows, right? So over the last like 10 years or whatever, there's 2 annual lows that are like more or less in the same range, slightly down from the other ones. The rest of them are like 2x, 10x, 5x, 10x, 5x. Right? It's just like that. Just look at the lows and stop, because it's going to drop by 80% sometimes. And if you want
to, it's dropping about 20% tomorrow. I'll put a Bitcoin on that. You know what I mean?
It's going to happen.
But great news. If it's only 20%, that's cool. That's just people making money.
In the rest of the market, people will be like jumping out of buildings, and like anybody in crypto is like, what? That was just Wednesday. It's going to come back out tomorrow.
Circuit breakers go off. I mean, everything shuts down. That's what I laughed about. Is that, I knew the markets were going bad, but I had no clue that they stopped, because I mean, Bitcoin just kept on bleeding. You know.
Yeah, it's that's a whole thing. That's the whole thing.
But like I say, it's a whole nother world. I mean, I'm excited about it. I mean, we talk about crypto but I'm also excited about, I mean, DLT. I mean, I do think that, shipping and inventory is a big application for distributed ledger. It doesn't even have to have a value, but just the overall concept, I mean,
yeah,
I want an island as well, but in a Lambo to get there, but I'm excited to see it kind of advance and
just buy a boat and just name it Lambo.
So it's funny, that's what, so you talk about, I mean, prices are up. We're close to the all-time high. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to take, I had some mining rigs years and years ago that I've been sitting on. And so I was like, I'll dump a few of those. So I dumped a few and actually bought half of a boat with my buddy. And I told him, I was like, just so you know, we're getting a Bitcoin symbol and putting it on the back because it's the boat that Bitcoin bought. So
I like it.
I was like, I worked hard. I managed those miners, those GPU rigs. I lived off of those things. Damn it! I'm gonna enjoy the fruits of my labor. But anyway, I don't even remember how we got there. But
no, I love watching people when they have you seen the videos of people using them as heaters?
Using the what?
Using the little Bitcoin miners as heaters.
Oh yeah, I mean that's so funny. We were up at one of our plants. We're in rural Pennsylvania, and it's cold as balls up there. It's like 25, 28 degrees or something, and we're repairing miners that are up there. And it's freezing, and your hands hurt so bad. So we set up a rack of miners, about 3 or 4 miners, and just pointed them straight at us. So you're in a wind tunnel, but it was just straight up heat that was flowing over to you, so it wasn't nearly as bad. But oh yeah, the miners we've got, the M20Ss, they pull 3,600 watts at, I don't know, it's like 16 amps or something. They basically require a ton of cooling per miner.
Wow.
So, I mean, the heat, it's just heat waves that pour out of these things. One miner is more, like I say, you put 2 miners in your house, your air conditioner couldn't even handle it by itself.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy. So, anyway, but yeah, they're great heaters. And actually, that's kind of a new application for them, is that why would you run a heater when you could run a appliance that does the same thing but actually makes money too?
Like literally makes money.
Correct. That's what I mean. If you're talking about a little space heater, you're not going to be making a lot of money, but what did you make on that money by turning it straight into heat?
Yeah, I grew up in the Canadian Arctic, and like in a basement where the entire time I was growing up, I could see my breath. In like for 9 months of the year, right? Like the idea that I could have had a freaking Bitcoin miner running the whole time.
That's what really, especially when the S9s or whatever, they were like 1,400 watts, and I don't like cold. You can tell I'm not built. I'm wearing my sweatshirt now or whatever. Is that I don't do cold. Same type of thing was that, I was always running the heater, and I realized that's a 1,500 watt heater. And of course, I'd plug it in and I'd trip breakers and stuff. But I mean, I knew it was pulling a lot of power. Of course, I didn't care. I was cold. But then I was like, wait a minute, that is the exact same thing as that. And actually, one thing we started doing was, instead of using ASICs to test things, we'd plug in heaters. Because if you zapped a heater, you go down to Walmart and buy another one for $15.
Right.
You a $2,000 miner, and you're like, damn, that's a $200 power supply, or even worse, right? But
right.
It's the same thing, is that ultimately pull a lot of power constantly. And heat is your byproduct. But yeah, that's what I finally had the bright idea. And it was like some craptastic little heater. But I was like, no. Don't you be plugging in our good equipment. You want to test things out and you don't know. Plug in that heater. It's the same thing,
Yeah. So what's the, I mean, we've been talking a little bit about Proton, about Nifties and stuff, like, and if it's the same, just say it's the same. Like, what do you think is going to be the biggest thing that people aren't really paying attention to in this bull cycle?
And all of crypto, or
sure,
just EOS,
whatever comes to mind. I mean, most of us are in sort of the EOSIO focused community, but I'm cool with. No,
I don't, and I'm not as involved. I mean, I've got ETH nodes, I've got Binance Smart Chain nodes, I got all these other nodes or whatever, but I'm mostly heavily involved with the EOSIO and all the different aspects of it. That nobody really saw coming. I don't know, maybe the payment rails, although, the game, my 2 big things are the gaming and the payments, but I don't feel like either of those 2 are, coming out of left field or anything. That's what
it's not going to be. It's not going to be too much of a surprise. But if we got those two things right, that would be enough to fuel the whole thing.
I try to explain this to people all the time: is that blockchain is not for everything. It is an expensive database. I mean, if you need a database, you probably don't need a blockchain. There's certain things that are beneficial. Immutable asset tracking or instantaneous. Not bonded currency, but you can transfer something and think that it's still going to have worth by the time it gets there. Maybe 20% less by the time it gets there. Still some worth to it. I'm real bullish that those will eventually come to fruition and bridge you don't even know you're doing it. Like for instance, you're going to start buying stuff with Bitcoin through PayPal or potentially. I don't know if you will or not, but you get the point that, that's just going to obfuscate blockchain from it. That's where, I don't know, the biggest surprise is going to be, how about this? My biggest surprise in the next 2 to 3 years is that people are going to be using blockchain and not realizing it. They may just go and get a game and not realize it actually was blockchain. It was a wax game. They just, whatever, they don't think. Or, that they either through PayPal or whatever, use crypto as a payment mechanism. Because what I try to remind people is that people are so foreign on this, token aspect. Well, this token is worth something, but it's not really $1.
Yeah.
Do you use a credit card? Have you ever used a credit card in the last 20 years? You understand they've been issuing you tokens that are redeemable at certain values for certain things for decades. So if you just think of, instead of it being, because when I have 100 or 100,000, whatever the hell it is, credit card points, I look at that and say, I have $100 that I can go spend at Amazon. When you start looking at that same thing, it's just a token that's worth value that somebody is willing to accept. So Amazon's willing to accept my credit card points. Amazon's willing to accept Bitcoin, or you get, I don't know, best thing I can think of is Alphabet. That's the only people that would do exclusively crypto, but a website that says, no, I'm only doing crypto, maybe to avoid Bitcoin and all of that. Pornhub. There you go. Yeah,
Pornhub. I think you still can do. Yeah, Verge was initially doing it. Now they're taking. Apparently this week, I just saw the headline. Adriana from Slide for Glass was posting about it. Like basically, the dollar is way down the bottom of the list of the currencies they want to take.
Why? Because you got to pay with. You got to deal with the banks. You got to deal with the fees. You got to deal with all of that. So that's why I say that. So people are going to start. They're going to go to Pornhub. I'll use that as a perfect example. And maybe I'm going to watch this because that might actually be my pony that wins. But they go to Pornhub. They want to pay for their subscription with PayPal.
Yep.
Pornhub doesn't take dollars. Hey, by the way, PayPal doesn't care, right? And so they say, you want the best price? Use this. Sure, I'll use that one. Well, it happens to be PayPal buying Bitcoin and shooting it straight over. And they know no difference. They bought it at current price. They paid it at current price, settled out, right?
Yep.
But that to me is when you have somebody who obviously is not thinking with this head about crypto, using crypto to procure their services.
No, I really like that idea of thinking about it in terms of users coming in and not even have any fucking idea what's going on. Like people are like Emanate is dropping tomorrow. They're dropping their not Emanate, but they're connected to them. Deadmau5 dropping his collectibles NFTs tomorrow, and I would imagine that's going to bring people in. They're like, well, I just want to get that. And you can use fiat to do it. Suddenly it lives on Atomic. And they're like, what the fuck is this wax shit? Right. And so it'll kind of start that cycle, but they don't know. They don't know what blockchain is. They don't give a shit.
Right.
They just understand.
I'm kind of surprised that Wax didn't, but it's so early on. But like the Shatner thing, they had a big thing that was about the Shatner collectibles. And I think they brought in a lot of people that, just were Shatner fans or whatever. Yep. But I don't think they actually bought it with Wax. I think they bought it with like a payment processor and paid with credit cards.
Yeah.
But same type of thing is that you're going to start bringing in either the collectible market, garbage pail kids or whatever, or gaming, things like that. And bridging, I had no clue, either the service and or the game that, because like I say, I think websites and particular cultures maybe, yeah, hell yeah, crypto is way better than the dollar, But I was just talking to one of the other BPs, and he said like the dollar against the euro is down 20% or something. We're getting wrecked. So
yeah, for real. I think it was the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. Basically, everybody in Norway owns $8 worth of Bitcoin because of Norway's wealth fund's position in MicroStrategy.
There you go.
Right.
Diversifying.
Right. They don't know. The entire country of Norway is full of people who have no freaking idea they own a little bit of Bitcoin.
How many people you think have a 401k that through the threads or whatever may have a little inkling of Bitcoin in there? It's probably nowhere like that, but
it isn't zero, right? And again, like to your point, what's that going to look like in 2 years? Because like MicroStrategy is going to look like they were super geniuses, but to all of us, they're like they didn't even buy at 3,000. Like what the fuck's the problem?
Right, that's right. You got in at 20. Oh, you got wrecked.
It's so funny watching people like, oh my god, I can't buy at 20. I'm like, dude, you shut up. Buy it. Hold it for 4 years. You're gonna be happy. Hold it for maybe 18 months, right? Like we don't know how long this thing is gonna take or whatever, but like the likelihood that Bitcoin will be lower than 20,000 in a year to me is just astronomically low.
See, possible. I get to take the other side of it. Is that, and I was joking about the same thing when I ran the rigs or whatever. Is that I don't buy crypto. I print money, so I live on the other side of it. You know what I mean? Is that I'm not an investor. I'm not buying and trying to sell or whatever. I'm just generating it and hope. I mean, there's a little bit of speculation is when do I sell, when do I hold, but you know, I mean, that's what I don't even look at it like that. It's almost like a score in a game. I'm just trying to get a high score, and every now and then I can take that high score and be like, hey, give me $10,000.
Yeah, this high score just became a boat. Motherfucker.
Right. That's what when I first started, when I joined on, so David, the CEO of EOSUSA, he's a tech nerd as well with me. And we together are partners at a managed service firm that we've worked at for 20 years or whatever. Anyway, so but I was explaining a lot of all the nuances and stuff to him. Anyway, I don't even remember what I was talking about with him, but anyway, what else you got?
Right. I mean, that's kind of it. Like we talked about even more stuff than I wanted to talk about, but it's basically like being able to talk to somebody who's actually, working with the BP, running the nodes, like thinking about in terms of actually running the ledgers. I think it's just, I mean, I'd love to have you back too, because I think it's only a matter of time before there's a whole bunch of other stuff we got to talk about.
Well, like I say, I love to talk. I mean, I'll keep talking. I mean, we can keep talking about running all those nodes. And I just did the scan actually a little while ago. I needed an IP. I have 111 nodes running.
Okay, so can you break that down to what that would mean to a guitar player who's like a fan of crypto but has no clue what you just said?
Absolutely. So I'll try to keep it short to not have it drag out another hour, although I'm happy to hang out and chat.
Do your worst.
So it may roll to the next one. So I guess let me take a step back. Running blockchain nodes, other than like proof of work, Bitcoin and Ethereum or whatever, they basically run on regular servers. So the Dell servers that you see out there, that's in your day-to-day office job or whatever. It's just a normal server. It's a little more powerful or a little bigger in some aspects, but it's not using a megawatt of power or a ton of cooling or whatever. So just understand that in the proof of stake world, running a server is really just the regular running a server for an IT nerd, which is why it's great for me as a hardware IT nerd, is that
you're doing this anyway.
I'm just running servers. It's RAID arrays, it's operating systems, it's Ubuntu and stuff like that. So ultimately, and where we come into our sweet spot is because we have this managed service company that we also still work with. We're constantly pulling out old servers and putting in new ones, or decommissioning and moving them to the cloud, or they're just 3 years old and need to be upgraded for a faster one. But a lot of them really don't have much of a second life. Is you can't sell them on eBay because they cost so much to ship. They're not big boys, so they're not really worth a lot. And what I actually found, and we ran into this with all of them, is that we built a scrap pile of I call it the boneyard. Is that as our nerds, we got about 24 nerds that are constantly, bringing in workstations and monitors and printers and servers and just throwing them in this pile. And then we have the recyclers come through once a month, whatever. I call them Itchy and Scratchy, but great guy. But they show up and they take all these and they'll build some servers out or workstations. But I mean, most of them, they said, nah, we'll take it to the scrap metal and, sell the aluminum or whatever. And yeah, it's a 100-pound server. I bet it's worth a lot, $5 or whatever, a lot of relative term. But what I realized was that, wait a minute, I mean, if I have so many of these and they're all kind of the same, they're all Dells, whatever, is that, well, what if I took that one server and took the parts out of it and put it in this one and this one and this one and built a nice bigger server out of it? Doesn't have warranty, may have some parts break, but I love fixing computers. So I don't really do that for my business customers, but for internal, I mean, no problem. I can make it reliable enough and I don't have to pay $200 an hour to get it fixed. I just go and put another hard drive in it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I say we have unlimited hardware. I just went yesterday. I'll show you a picture. I snagged another 4 servers that are just shells that I open them up and they're nothing but dust bunnies and all sorts of crap and, things missing, but I'll piece them together and amp them up. They come in with 1 processor and 16 gigs of RAM. When I get done with them, they got 2 processors and 192 gig of RAM,
Right.
So anyway, I'm able to very low OpEx or CapEx even, add lower end servers. These are not brand new servers. They're 5, 5, 7, 10-year-old servers, right?
Yeah, but they work.
But they're free. So what I've been able to do is, as I've, gotten familiar with the landscape, some things require faster servers. Like a block producer needs a faster processor. It doesn't need this massive $50,000 server to sign the block, but it needs to have a fast processor. So as opposed to a history node, which is, it doesn't have to have the fastest processor as importantly, but it needs a lot of memory because V1 history is very memory intensive. So you need 100 gigs of RAM, So you've got different, but you might be able to get by with a slower processor. Does that make sense? So I've found sweet spots for, well, what does this service need and what does this service need? And we always affectionately refer to them as my potato farm because I'm known for, and it's actually worked out for their benefit, is that I push things at the lower level. I've got my new servers. I make some money and I buy new servers where I need to do it, but I'll always try it. How low of a server can I do that on? What's the bottom threshold for pushing that limit? Well, there's not actually a lot of people in our space that do that. You go around all these BPs, they mostly all got nice high end, and rightfully so. You don't want to wait on it. You don't want it to go down, but things work differently when you run them half speed. Like installs trip up over themselves because, well, when it's 100 miles an hour, it never has a problem. Well, when you run it at 50 miles an hour, it can't go fast enough and this starts and it falls over. So I've actually found different issues by running it on lower performance hardware just to give you the full breadth of, well, we know what it looked like on a nice piece of hardware.
Right.
Where is that threshold? And I can tell you, look, don't run an EOS node on a physical hard drive. I can tell you, I've tried it every different way I can. It just doesn't work well. It's too much data, Yeah. That's actually what caught me this morning was I had one of those Proton nodes, not the main nodes, but one of my that fed the history. It didn't need to be a big powerhouse. It just needed to keep up with the chain and keep the data fed. Well, they smashed so much data onto it, it outran the hard drives, I think, and ultimately just kind of stumbled over and fell over on its face. So long story short, I'm going to have to give a little bit more oomph to it. But, anyway, so that's how I have this farm of these servers. And they're not new servers. They're not pretty servers, but there's lots of servers. And so that's why I'm a man everywhere, is that you want me to run some IBC nodes. They don't need to be super fast nodes. Interesting tidbit, to do all of the IBC chains, I have 8 nodes. There's 8 nodes to do all of the IBC bridging that you see today.
Okay.
EOS, TLOS, WAX, BOS, and YAS. But each bridge has 2 nodes to it. So there's a BOS and EOS, there's a BOS and WAX, there's a BOS and TLOS. So anyway, long story short, there's 8 nodes that I run with EOSIO software with some extra settings that handle these IBC bridges. And it's not really profitable. Let me put it that way. Can you imagine having to pay for 8 servers in the cloud to do that?
No.
Even if they're put on servers, you're still paying $100, $200, $300 a month. Well, I didn't pay for the server. As long as it runs and didn't crash, I didn't put a lot of time into it. It just kind of runs, and it's EOSIO. I do this shit in my sleep, so that's why EOSUSA has found a sweet spot for being a man that gets around the ecosystem.
I like it.
And unlimited hardware. So that's what I say is it's not Lambos, but if you need a node to run that, like Vigor, we talked about Vigor. I got a bunch of price feeds and a bunch of oracles and stuff like that. Hell yeah. I have miners for processing their job. Sure, I'll throw a potato at it. You want another one? Sure, here, no problem. Anyway, That's kind of
No,
our
I like it. Instead of having a bunch of BMWs driving around, you just got a fleet of pickup trucks.
I Toyotas. That's what I call them. Is that Toyotas? Is that they've got Lambos? I've got my Pintos. Is that I got a lot of Toyotas and Hondas and some BMWs because I don't have any Lambos. I mean, I don't have any i9s. I don't need. I mean, not to say I couldn't use them, but
if somebody wanted to just give you one, you'd be like, oh,
right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I can't, how am I going to turn down the best? But cost reason wise, because remember, I mean, one thing most people forget nowadays is, I mean, we've been here since the beginning. We were here at chain launch. Our account was registered as a BP in June of 2018. Yeah. But we weren't as big into the launch group as everybody else. So you didn't think of us as that launching founding BP. And so slowly I've kind of had to fight my way back to get it. Whereas everybody that launched kind of slowly slid their way down. Yeah. I've been having to fight that battle and the battle of just trying to get my way up. And we did. A couple months ago, we finally broke into EOS standby pay. So we finally got enough support and votes that while other BPs were dropping out, we were able to, because I'm involved with all the projects and because, people knew who I was and I stayed.
Right.
That we actually were able to scrounge our way up and are still at this point. We're right on the edge, but
well, how do people can you walk people through just for posterity, like how can people support you guys as a BP?
If you're on any EOSIO chain, any EOSIO based chain, if most of them have the ability to vote for block producers, and you will find our account. So you'll see our stars and bars, as I call it, our logo, but
nice.
It's it's Wax USA or Telos USA or whatever on the different chains, but they normally all start with I vote for EOS USA on the EOS mainnet. But when you vote for our block producer, ultimately we get our share of the chain inflation rewards. So I mean, we'll take donations if anybody wants to just shoot over a check or a Lambo or something. Obviously, that's
right.
Great, but
if you got an i9 sitting around,
i9. There you go. I mean, I'll take.
Right.
But like I say, ultimately, our job, I consider us a service provider. I mean, we sign blocks, we run history nodes. I mean, there's of these 100 nodes. I'd say about 25 of them are block producers. Like actual block producer nodes, either on main nets or test nets. There's nothing like that. Interesting tidbit. I did the math. Every 0.4 of a second, give or take, there is a block being signed by one of our servers on a chain somewhere.
Huh.
Either Telos or Wax or Testnet, Jungle or Kylan or whatever. I mean, not all of them are public, but there's a block every half a second. Block producers, there's 21 block producers normally, and they sign 12 blocks, so it's 6 seconds. Basically, once you get a 6-second slot every 2 minutes is basically how it works out. So ultimately, if you have 21 block producers, you're basically signing a block every half a second. Well, I have a few more than 21. So I'm like, it's about 0.4 seconds. So
that's cool.
But that, like I say, I've run a lot of blockchains. And to finish the question, vote for us. If you vote for us, we make more of the inflation from the chain.
Get it done. I was actually, I was staking some wax and didn't know to vote for you guys, and now I do. So there.
Yeah, we're there. And of course, I mean, so that gives me, I don't know, a 1/10 of a wax extra a day. I mean, it's not like it's buying any major Lambos, but every little bit helps because that's what we all.
Right. It's like, 5 years from now, and there's hundreds of thousands of people, on Axe and Wax and EOSIO playing whatever Blankos VR nonsense is happening at the time.
Right, Blankos. That's right.
Right. Yeah, I actually haven't played it yet. People have been telling
I haven't either. I got the emails, and I was, I mean, I kind of had to choose between my bag going to Blankos or Alien Worlds. So
yeah, I got one of the I got one piece of land in Alien Worlds. I still have no clue what to do with it. So I'm gonna take you up on your advice and talk to Anders and tell him, okay, listen.
I've got more than one.
Noise.
I bought a few.
Nailed it.
I refer to myself as a slumlord now.
Okay. All right. I like it.
So I didn't buy all the high end ones. I bought all the cheap ones. I was like, oh no, I'll be the slumlord.
Right.
Anyway, land is land, right? That's what. So I'll put you on that.
Right. Yeah, we should totally do that. That'd be fun.
The interesting on that, your common land that you got is there's only 3,000 lands out there in Alien World. So while they
Yeah.
call it common, you realize that by most gaming standards, that's like legendary status. There's only 3,000. There will only be 3,000
that's the thing. If
mostly
it gets
made.
big, like I want to get more. Like, when people throw that stuff on the secondary market because they have no idea what they're doing with it, I'm like, I'll pick that up.
Those have pretty much been wiped out. I got a few of those. Yeah, you probably sold the two lows, but yeah, I mean they're out there. Probably, I think going price right now for the lowest land was $75. So,
oh wow,
I mean, it's 1,800 wax, 2,000 wax. The most of the packs were actually bought for 1,000 wax. So most people probably double their money if they're selling them right now, at least.
Right. Yeah, I think I picked mine up for a little bit more than that, but it was in that range.
Yeah, but they had that Dutch auction, which is a whole weird kind of.
Was weird.
And they've been tweaking it and playing with it and everything, but I don't know. It's almost a game within itself. Was like, I know somebody's about to wreck this market. When are they going to do it? And it was the second to last one. I had to be sitting at I don't know. I was at like my daughter's best friend's birthday party, one of those little private COVID birthday parties or whatever. So there's like 3 of us there, and every hour I would check my phone to see whenever the price dropped, and it was like 6 o'clock, and at 6:01 it went from like 11,000 or 1,100 packs to like 600, and I was like, oh my god,
oh, that's happening.
And so, like I said, that's when they started rolling through. But it was like that,
Wow,
anyway,
that's crazy. That is interesting.
Sell cards,
huh? All right, man. Well, I got to run, but thank you so much for coming on, and we'll definitely have you on again. Maybe we'll do. I'll invite you on when I do the Alien Worlds thing, and we'll nerd out about that shit.
Absolutely. Or if you got technical questions, I mean, I don't know all the technical. I'm not a dev guy, so I don't know all the code, but
I think like going back down to understanding, little bits about how the actual guts work, I think is important, right? Like that, and I definitely don't understand it fully now. So like, I think anytime there's any developments in the space, I think it'd be great to have your perspective on it anyway.
Or even like, I know one of the big ones that they would hit me on is like history. I mean, nobody really understands. It's blockchain. How the hell is there a history problem? Oh, you just don't understand that it's on the blockchain, but that doesn't mean it's easy to read, but explaining how all that works and just kind of opening the world. So anyway, happy to geek speak about anything. I mean,
all right. Yeah, well, I'll take you up on that. And if there's anything else, if there's stuff that happens in the news that that you think we should be paying attention to and you haven't seen me paying attention to, throw it at me. We'll have you on about that stuff too, because I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Looking forward.
All right, man. Do you go by Michael or Mike?
Michael, although I mean I'll go by anything. I mean any 4-letter name I'll respond to.
All right. The EOS hooker.
There you go.
I had to do it. I wasn't going to do it, and then I did it.
EOSIO.
EOSIO, right? Yeah. EOS.
I do it for all the chains.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, man. Cheers. Thank you very much. And again, make sure you vote for EOSUSA as a block producer, guys, and support these guys any way you can. And that I didn't know that was like on all the chains, but it makes sense now that you said it. So whether it's on Wax or EOS or Telos or whatever. Get it done.
Go and look. You'll see our logo somewhere on there.
All right.
Get all the support.
Hell yeah. Tell everyone else to do it too. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, man.